Good evening. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is precisely 5:30 p.m. It's a great night to work for kids in Fort Worth, Texas. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, this meeting is officially open with a quorum present. Our Pledge of Allegiance this evening will be led by students from East Hanley Elementary School. Their principal, Mrs. Hobbs, will introduce them in a moment, but first, let's please stand to recite both pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas flag, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Mr. Clint Bond from Communications will help us with other recognitions we have this evening. But first, Mrs. Hobbs, if you would introduce our students.
Mrs. Jackson, members of the board, Dr. Scribner, the pledges this evening were led by some of our esteemed East Hanley Bears, starting with second grader Daniel Andrews, third grader and president of our Junior Optimist International Club, Maddox Musgrove. One of our fifth graders headed to one of our esteemed programs of choice next year, fifth grader Isabel Mendoza. And I would like for their families to stand, and also our librarian is here to support our students as well. Thank you so much for having us. It was indeed an honor for us to be here and to serve our community.
Thank you for being here. Mr. Bond?
Thank you, President Jackson, members of the board. Dr. Scribner, our JROTC greeters this evening are from the Army JROTC unit at Eastern Hills High School, where Katrina Smith is the principal. Please join in thanking them for their assistance this evening. We value individuals who go out of their way to volunteer on our campuses and donate countless hours helping students succeed. Some volunteers also share their passion for education. Mr. Nesfasil, would you please stand? Michael Nesfasil is a retired community member whose passion for education and love of books brought him to Riverside Middle School, where he has been volunteering for the last 2 years. In that time, he's been on campus several days each week and stays for the entire 6 periods, providing individual reading assistance for students that need just a little more help. Spending a period reading with a student may seem simple, but it leaves a profound and lasting impact. Thank you, Michael Nesfasil, for sharing your passion of reading, your generosity and commitment to help students not only with their literacy skills, but to help ensure their academic success. Jessica Becerra, a family communications specialist, will present him a certificate of appreciation. Jessica, present it again so she can get a photo.
The do-over.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Last year, a group of students from the Applied Learning Academy asked the question, why isn't there a crosswalk to help students and others safely cross Camp Bowie Boulevard to access the park and the Fort Worth T bus stop? So the students reached out to the City Transportation Department and, well, I'll just let this video tell you more.
Our school is surrounded by 4-lane roads, which is very dangerous, and we would like a safer way for the running club to be able to cross.
So last year, I was lucky enough to get a group of students to motivate and decide that they were going to solve this problem for our entire community. Once they decided that it was going to be an applied learning project that they were going to take on for real, there was no stopping them. You know, maybe we should visit the city council, maybe we should write letters to the mayor. What do?
We had to convince the people from the city that it was important enough for our school to get a crosswalk, and we had to convey the importance of our school getting a crosswalk to the board so they would actually fund it.
So I'm surprised that somehow in my ancient history class we produced a set of like mini urban planners.
It is amazing that they came and they talked to us and they presented their ideas. It's not like we're begging, we have to come find you. They came to us and they listened to us.
Right here is fine.
At first, you have to make sure there's no cars coming from the direction, and then you have to run across and wait at the midway until there's no cars that you can see, and then you have to run across to the park.
All right, go, 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 go.
They're moving really fast. It's two fast lane roads and we don't have a way to go there. So we need like a police officer would have to stand and escort the kids.
I thought before this project started, I had this vague idea that people do things, you know, experts do things, but it turns out that it's just us. These middle schoolers they're a model for all of us.
Last word was that the city will install a crosswalk late this spring or early fall. Here this evening, are the students who undertook this real-life civics lesson, and please stand when I call your name. Current ninth grader Michael Hill and Nick Cortez. Current eighth graders Amber Rivas, Bambi Sam, Brian Juarez, Carlos Rangel, and Ethan Gonzalez. Current seventh graders are Jacob Adair, Anya Woods, Felicity Carmen, and Avery Hand. And their teacher is Alexandra Cheka, and the principal at ALA is Alice Buckley.
Thank you to the students. That was great. What's your next project, I guess is the question. You're a great team. This concludes our scheduled recognitions. We'll take a short recess so our guests may depart if they so choose, especially our guests that have a new project to plan. to go? Elsie's ready. At this time, we're on number 4 of our agenda, reports and presentations, 2017-18 budget update and 2018-19 budget development update. Ms. Shiro, are you ready to give the report?
Yes, President Jackson, Dr. Scribner, and members of the board. Tonight, we'll be following the following agenda, which covers an update of our current 2017-18 budget, together with an 18-19 budget development update. As a caveat, I want to say that this presentation is pertaining to the general fund, Fund 199, and it does not reflect the revenue that we will be receiving from the TRE or the expenses that will be related to the TRE. We're going to provide you that the next budget workshop and/or update because we're still developing the actual final fund balance in that TRE. This slide provides revenues through January 31st of 18 as compared to the same time frame last year. So as compared to that time frame, you'll see that we have received over 59% of our revenue as compared to about 58% last year. What that tells us is that we are collecting revenue at just above the same percentage as in prior years, and we will, in all likelihood, collect the majority of our revenue at year end. The next slide, we are looking at expenditures through January 31st of 18, and this is by function. So as compared to the same time period last year, we have expended just over 43% of our appropriations as compared to January 31st of last year of just over 45%. That tells us again we are spending by similar percentages through January, and we are trending as we have historically in the past to be spending approximately 97% of our budgeted appropriations at year end. So we won't spend 100% of our appropriations. However, what I'd like to point out is that in the instructional functions, which is the functions 11, 13, and 95, we have spent over what we did last year in instruction. This slide is similar to the last. We're just looking at expenditures by object, that is payroll or contracted services, supplies, and materials. And basically, it's the same comparison. We're at about over 43% versus 45% last year. As far as fund balance projections are concerned, I wanted to also inform you that this slide has changed slightly since I gave it to you earlier today. There was an error in our Excel spreadsheet, and so these numbers are slightly different than you saw earlier. But we're looking at the blue column showing the 17-18 budget with a $53 million negative variance. And we're also looking at expenditures to the far right of about 97% of them. All right, so I'm not factoring in that we're spending 100% of our expenditures. So we look like there will be a variance at year end of about a $34 million deficit and an unrestricted fund balance at year end of a little over $154 million, or 20% of annual expenditures. A couple of things to mention here. Adoption, of a deficit budget going forward, we're going to have to be very cautious. We have to look to sustainability, and we will also be looking at the additional revenue we're getting from the penny swap. So when the dust settles, we will have a very good fund balance for you when we combine both the TRE and the general fund together. All right, so in addition, our enrollment and corresponding ADA is going to remain nearly the same or decline over the coming years. So as a result, we're going to have to be looking for reduced state aid as we go forward. We are projected to have 78,372 students in average daily attendance next year. and the new Templeton demographic numbers are expected in April. And so they're looking at what is going on in the local charters. That is probably the biggest reason why our enrollment in elementary is declining. And so they're doing additional work to ensure that our numbers is as closely accurate for our budget projections next year. So hopefully by April, we'll have updated enrollment figures. This slide shows the projected enrollment by grade for the 18-19 school year as compared to the 2 prior years. So looking at the first change column, that basically reflects what happened in the 17-18 school year. We lost 1,562 students in elementary, while gaining 155 students in middle school and gaining 105 students in high school, which resulted in the net loss of enrollment of 1,302 students for the 17-18 school year. Looking at the last change column to the right, the projected enrollment decline for 18-19 school year is 724 students in elementary, and we will gain 168 students in middle school and 280 students in high school for a net loss of 276 students. So the total projected enrollment for next year is 85,851. So budgetary considerations will have to be made for this decline in enrollment. So turning to some 18-19 budget revenue and expenditure estimates, we've got to make some assumptions going forward. So on the good news side, we're expecting taxable property values to increase by nearly 8% in the 2018 tax year. Of course, this brings additional local revenue. And it has a negative effect on state aid, as you'll see in the next slide. However, we're getting substantial additional dollars in local tax collections. However, the negative enrollment growth of 276 students and a decrease in average daily attendance of about 252 students will have a negative impact on state aid. We are looking to increase federal revenue. We do provide many services to our Medicaid-eligible students, which drives federal revenue. However, the district is still awaiting its indirect cost rate from the Texas Education Agency. As you may or may not know, we receive revenue. We charge the grants 5% for all of the administrative things we do for the grant, payroll and bills and oversight and reporting. That indirect cost rate has been at 5%, and we have increased our revenue substantially over the last couple of years. But that indirect cost rate is under review and likely will decline in this next school year. So that means less federal dollars. All right. So here we are. We're looking at the 2018-19 column and the change column next to it on this slide. So our local revenue for tax collections will increase by $39.6 million over the last year due to the increased taxable property values. As you can see, though, that has a negative effect on state aid, which as tax collections go up, state aid goes down. We're also in a decline in ADA. So that shows that we're going to go down approximately $31 million in state aid, and we're looking at nearly a slight loss in federal revenue until we determine what the indirect cost rate is. So overall, we're only going to be down about $3 million in revenue in relationship to this current year. Of course, we're going to be receiving $23 million for the penny swap this year. We'll be receiving it next year and in all future years. So we will be budgeting for that as well. So what do we know thus far about our expenditures for the 2018-19 school year? Well, we know that we are growing grade levels at World Language Institute, TCC South. We're opening I Am Terrell STEM VPA Academy, and we're adding a grade level at J.T. Stevens. All of those also require supplies and materials. So, you're looking at 47.5 new FTEs and supplies for a total of nearly $4.5 million for those grade level expansions and new school openings. I put a to be determined on mandated compliance programs. We're still looking at the departments, and we really don't know exactly what our title funds will be. We haven't gotten a lot of information regarding federal programs. And so I'm hesitant to go ahead and estimate that now. Based upon our current projections, it's unlikely we'll be able to take on substantial FTEs from grant sources. But that's yet to be determined. Other considerations, as I have told the board before, a 1% across-the-board salary increase is $6.2 million. Next year, we will have the second year of the Leadership Academies, and those stipends will be over $3.2 million. We feel that the continuation of the substitute incentive brings value, that basically we have a greater number of substitutes filling our classrooms in absences. So we feel that's a good way to spend $800,000 and have the teachers or substitutes in the classroom. And then on this last one is I've been alluding to it now for some time. You see that $1 million. What that is that the last time we did a compensation study was in 2014. And we are noticing that in some job classes, we're out of market now. We're going to have to make adjustments so we can stay competitive in the market for our positions. But we can't do all of that year one. It's very expensive. And so I'm putting together, and Brenda DeLeon, our compensation executive director, is putting together a 3-year plan that you'll see at our next budget workshop. And so you're going to kind of see that we're going to be moving through so we can start adjusting pay grades and getting our pay codes into, market. So I set aside $1 million for that. I think that's important. And so at any rate, I've earmarked that for that reason. And then reduction in grant funding and the impact of the general fund, I'm quite not yet able to tell you what that is or what the potential is. So I know this may be hard to see for the public, but you've got it in front of you. This is just basically the last few slides, now put down into numbers that you can see. Of course, the revenue is at $735.3 million. What you see on the next line is that we are projecting year-end payroll at year-end to be $651 million. So that's that first line. The second line is campus and departmental budgets. These are preliminary, and we're still working on those to reduce them on at least the department side, not the campus budgets, but the departmental side. And that's about $97 million to date, and all of the leadership team is working on their departmental budgets at this time. Of course, we've talked about the additional FTEs and costs for schools of choice and program growth, and that's in there. I have not put anything in there yet for mandated programs and compliance requirements. And the salary increase is not in there. It's the amount per percentage. And the compensation and the other items, the substitute incentive and the leadership academies, those are, known numbers. And so what you're seeing here is currently, without all of the considerations being populated, that we're already at a $23 million deficit. So we have a lot of work to do over the coming couple of months. These are the dates that we're going to be working with. We're eager to have a budget workshop with the board. We had it scheduled for the 17th of April. If we could move that up to maybe the 3rd of April, it's up to the board, but we really want to get some information to you. And so we can start just, finding out what your priorities are. I need your input, I want your input. And so as soon as we can get a workshop together, I'd be most appreciative. So with that said, I will take any questions.
Mr. Robbins.
Thank you, President Jackson. I noticed the decline in population in the elementary grades, but increases in middle and high school. So what's driving the middle and high school increases?
Well, as I believe it to be, you're looking as the kids matriculate from, one grade level to another, and the thing is we've had some decline in early years, pre-K to 3 or 4, because of the decline of the birth rate and because of charters. And so as those kids matriculate through the middle and high schools, we're at least maintaining, some of those students and not declining in enrollment.
Okay, I was hoping we were drawing students from other sources.
To my knowledge, what we receive for our schools of choice and other programs, we have a few, but it's not a lot of students that come in from outside the district.
Okay, thank you. Because we get money from the penny swap, you don't think that the state will penalize us for that, do you? They won't try to zero us out or anything?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, that's strictly, it was voter approved. It has everything to do with just the tax rate.
Right.
And tax collections.
Right.
And so unless the voters change that rate, we will not be penalized.
Okay. And then finally, you showed expenses for the second year of the leadership academies. Do we anticipate adding a leadership academies next year in addition to the ones we have now?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay, I think we want to
Okay,
discuss that with you.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Trustee Moss?
Thank you, President Jackson. The international charter school that was opened in Meadowbrook, the same company is opening a large charter school there in Forest Hill, near our location. And it's supposed to open in August.
Yes. Yeah, we've been monitoring. We get notice from TEA of all intended charter openings, and so we've really been monitoring that, sending them to our demographer, so we can better estimate the effect of charters this year and coming years.
Any other questions? Well, thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
You're welcome.
We look forward to the meetings and working together.
All right, thank you.
This time, we're moving to number 5 on the agenda, Lone Star Governance. Dr. Scribner, would you like to say just a few words?
Thank you very much. In fact, I'm going to be providing the presentation tonight. We decided in tonight's presentation around Lone Star Governance, focusing on student outcomes, that what we would do was take a more systemic look. We have been looking at our 3 goals of early literacy, middle years math, and college and career preparedness specifically. And tonight what we're going to do is take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So tonight's district initiative update is entitled Our Next Chapter, Developing a School-Centered Culture in Fort Worth ISD. I feel like we are at the end of our first chapter together. We've been together for 2 years, and I think tonight it would be timely for us to take a look at what we've accomplished, what we are doing now, and what we will be doing. I think Mr. Robbins' question and Ms. Moss' follow-up with regard to the charter conversation is very timely, because we want to be proactive in our partnerships as opposed to reactive. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So let's talk about Chapter 2. We are obviously going to stick with it. Sticking with it is an essential piece to an organization's success. And this board, before I arrived in Fort Worth, adopted a mission of preparing all students for success in college, career, and community leadership, all students in every corner of the city. This is a cradle-to-career journey, and we know that in successful organizations, we stick to it, and the main thing remains the main thing. When I was interviewing for this job, and we talked about the needed changes in Fort Worth ISD, I remember discussing with you that organizations, in my view, organizations are perfectly designed to get the outcomes that they're getting. If we want to change the outcomes, then we must change the design, and we've started that process. I am happy to report to the community that this board has embraced the concept of Lone Star governance, whereby we are driven by the overriding belief that student outcomes will not change until adult behaviors change. We have to focus on the right things. We have to focus on what's good for the entire district and all students in every corner, from excellence to equity to efficiency and to choice. The board, as many of you know, adopted 3 goals, and we have alignment. We have focus on these goals, or literacy, middle years math, and college and career readiness, but we have alignment. Your goals, board, are the district's goals. The district's goals are my performance evaluation goals. So Fort Worth ISD can report to its community that we have focus and we have alignment, and we also know that success breeds success. And I'm a firm believer, which is why we've doubled down on early literacy, and I see we have a partner, community partner in literacy here in the audience, that success in goal 1 will ensure success in goals 2 and 3. So let's today talk about ending chapter 1, where the needle is beginning to move, though not as fast as we would like, nor as fast as it will, but we are going to move this vision into action. We have decreased the number of IR campuses significantly. Dramatically, in fact, from 23 down to 13. We see sharp increases in Algebra 1, our second goal, middle years math, from 77% passage rate from our 9th graders to 83%. We've seen college merit scholarships double, more than double, from $36 million when we all met to $65 million today. And let's take a look at how we got there. You'll remember that one of the first things we did a couple years ago was to, about a year and a half ago, was to reduce the executive administration and other central office positions and redirect those resources to schools. The resources should be where the kids are. We moved them out of the central office and into the schools to better support teachers and students. You'll remember we had a superintendent's cabinet of 24 members. Today, that is a leadership team of 10. Our instructional specialists also reassigned to the schools. Professional development taking place in the context of the schools in a more targeted way to support teachers and students. I'm a firm believer in listening and then learning and then leading. We must listen, then learn, and then lead, and that's why it's important to talk to every member of the community, and we have a diverse community of many different languages. We have invested in social media, enabling real-time and two-way communication, a two-way flow of information. We can learn as much from our community as they can learn from us, our internal community as well. Not only when we think of community, we always think of external community. We have an internal community as well of classified staff members, of instructional staff, of administration, of support staff, and of course of students. And communication has never been more important than it is today, emphasizing safety in our schools, in our communities. We had an incident, a tragic incident in the state of Maryland today, the Florida incident a few weeks ago. We want to be vigilant across the district, and I know in the Department of Communications we have invested in our social media, not only pushing out our message, but also mining the data and finding out what the students and other community members are talking about. With regard to our internal message inside Fort Worth ISD, every Thursday we have a weekly digital publication that informs our faculty and staff, that celebrates and also answers questions. I believe you can never over-communicate, and we'll continue to improve in this area in our mission of continuous improvement. This board authorized the 2017 bond election, and with your help, with the help of this community, it passed. The largest bond in Tarrant County history, almost $750 million, passed by the highest margin in the state on that evening. And we must tell our story, tell all stories, the good stories, tell our challenges, and this is not spin. We must be honest. We must be transparent about our strengths and our weaknesses, and be honest. We are good at many, many, many things, and we have challenges in several areas. But telling our story is essential. A child's life being changed by education is a story that must be told. We take a look at these stories and we think that they're new. They're not. Literacy and equity are not new problems to Fort Worth and Fort Worth ISD. They have been here for decades. And what we're doing is getting serious about urban school reform and attacking these issues where they live, serving our students both inside and outside of school and their families. Student success does exist, as I mentioned, and not just as scores on a standardized test. The Dunbar Aviation Hangar, great success. Project Lead the Way at several campuses. Blue Ribbon School, YWLA. Scholarships, as I told you, more than doubled from $36 million to $65 million. Choices Expo, again, talking about choice. We're going to touch on that in just a moment when we look at the district opportunities and both with our district schools and also charters. The My Brother's Keeper, a very important program started by President Obama that Fort Worth ISD is a leader in. Grad Nation, another successful program, and JROTC, where almost all, over 98% of those students graduate on time. These are programs that have rigor, that have relevance, and are about relationships. Let's quickly review. As you remember, 4 years ago, we had 28 IR campuses. That number is down to 13 today and on our way to 0. 4 of those are leadership academies. I wish we could take leadership academies to scale. As you saw in the budget conversation, they are an additional about $1 million a school, and with the after-school program from support from the Rainwater Foundation, that's an additional $1 million for the 5 schools. We need to take a look at strategically identifying ways in which we can raise local funds, or, in fact, perhaps there is some legislation that will be coming that I've been part of those conversations in investing in what works, and this clearly works. So we've had some success, but the world is changing. The goalposts have been moved. The IR, the accountability program that we have been under is going to change dramatically. We had 4 indices. They have changed now to 3 domains. They're still about achievement and growth and college and career readiness, but they're also college, career, and military readiness. That's important. We need to know what that means. We need to know what the achievement benchmarks are, what the growth benchmarks are. Here we are, almost in April, and districts across Texas still do not know the criteria for a B school or a C school, for example. The district will receive a letter grade next year that will be formal. The schools will receive informal letter grades, but once those are published and those are public, they're real. This is why in Fort Worth ISD we can't continue to chase accountability. We can't continue to chase standardized tests, because students are not going to be asked to succeed in standardized tests upon graduation. We want all our students to be successful in college, career, and community leadership. We need to prepare students for future job and life skills. Again, not chasing accountability systems. And we can't do it alone. As you've heard me say many times, students are in a school 7.5 hours of a 24-hour day, 5 days of a 7-day week, 180 days of a 365-day year. From birth to the age 18, students are only in a school building 15% of their lives. They're somewhere else 85% of the time. So we must do this in partnership with our community. And in early learning, From 0 to 4 years old, our students are 100% not in our camp. They're outside of school. And we know that 90% of the brain develops by age 5. When we have high-quality early childhood preparation, there are gains in not only cognition but social and emotional growth. And we all know that the best return on investment is a high-quality birth to 5 initiative. And that's why here in Fort Worth, we are blessed to be working with our elected officials and business leaders and faith leaders and nonprofits and philanthropic community on a collective impact model. We want our students to read so that they can succeed and ultimately they will be able to lead. This is a cross-sector collaboration made up of all corners of the city, led by Mayor Price and business leaders, also chaired by Matt Rose and myself. You know that what the goal is. The goal is 100% of third graders reading on grade level by 2025. I was at a Raising Fort Worth breakfast this morning and pointed out the conversation. If we want 100% of our third graders reading by 2025, that means 100% of our incoming kindergartners need to be kindergarten ready by 2021. So this is about the prenatal community. This is about 0 to 3 year olds. This is about high quality preschool and holding ourselves accountable for kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. So 100 by 25 Fort Worth, Texas, ready to read, ready to lead, listos para leer, listos para avanzar. Why is this important? Excuse me. Why is this important? This is important because it is a precursor. We know that in every city, every major city, a city's post-secondary completion rate, the number of adults in a community who hold a college degree, virtually correlates with a third grade reading. Whether it's Fort Worth, Texas, Dallas, Houston, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, we know that the third grade reading levels predict how many adults are going to have a college degree. In Fort Worth, Texas, there are 32% of the adults in our city hold a post-secondary degree. And if we're going to be competitive, if we're going to attract Amazons of the world, if we're going to attract other businesses, if we're going to have a prosperous and safe and high quality of living in Fort Worth, we need to have an educated adult population, and that's why it's our responsibility. We can impact our workforce. We can impact the economy, and we all know that the connection between education and the economy is inextricable. You see, a few years ago, we had 29% of our students our third graders reading at grade level, 30% last year, 34% this year. So we are gaining on the state average of 44%, and we're going to blow past the state average. That's my goal. I have been criticized for setting an aspirational goal. You're never going to get to 100%. Scribner? Yes, thank you, Ms. Moss. Yes, we are. Easy to attain goals. When people make goals that are easy to attain, those are status quo goals. We must strive for change. It's okay to fail forward. And if we get to 60, if we get to 80% on our way to 100, we will have changed the trajectory and the economy of this city for decades to come. So I'm not apologizing for setting lofty goals. How are we going to do it? This is back to Mr. Robbins' question. We intend to engage with the TEA, and tonight on your action agenda, you see a planning grant for transformation zone. That's dollars from the state of Texas that are going to help us develop into a system of great schools, where we have great schools in every neighborhood. We know that there is no single approach to improve student learning. Every student in Fort Worth deserves a quality school in their neighborhood. Zip codes should not determine success. So we want great schools in every neighborhood. We want to foster a culture of innovation. Doing the old thing is going to get you the old results. We have to change with the times. The world has changed. We must change with it. And in order to develop a culture of innovation, we need to design and support that area so that we can innovate and put solid people in those positions so that we can lead our innovation. The transformation zone allows us to build positions that will lead this work. We want to attract and retain high-quality talent. We talk about paying our employees what they're worth, investing in them as the assets that they are. In order to do this, we must support innovation. We need to give families an informed choice. The point about expanding leadership academies is a good one. We may need to make a decision as a community. Are we willing to continue to invest in those schools, or are there other options? We want to attract students from outside the district also. We currently are in the process of developing what we're calling a call for great schools, an RFP process, where we're going to invite partners, internal partners. We may have a teacher-led school. We may have a nonprofit help us run a school. We are looking at district charter hybrids to bring together, as opposed to sticking our heads in the sand and hoping that the same business that we've been doing in the past will be successful for us in the future. I'm not going to do that. We're going to have an RFP process where we're going to look for partners and embrace and engage them. Also, we want to have a call for great leaders. Right now, we're partnering with many higher education institutions, and they're telling us how the partnership is going to work. I grew up in a family of higher education, and I get it. Sometimes they come to us with grant opportunities, and those grant opportunities are more about their research than they are about what's good for our kids. Okay, so we're going to have a call for great leaders. We're going to invite UT Arlington, UT Austin, University of North Texas, Tarleton State, TCU, and others to apply for the right to work with us and train our future principals and train our future central office administrators. We must think strategically. Our programs have to align, and we want to work with the board to strategically plan our budget moving forward and programming moving forward. You'll remember that the planning has already begun. Our focus is not on adults in Chapter 2. Our focus is on students. I spent a lot of time talking about adults in Chapter 1. We're going to talk about students in Chapter 2. You'll remember in October of 2016, we engaged in an innovative learning for our future, the Engage to Learn process that gave us the rationale to ask our community for a bond question, a bond election. We started that in October 2016. The Innovative Learning for Our Future, Community Vision for Learning. We had community engagement activities, a survey of 3,000 community members. We spoke to teachers, students, parents, principals, business leaders, faith leaders, community members, and administrators. In the context of the 21st century, what are the most important skills that our learners need to possess in order to thrive? And they gave us a list. Our community gave us a list. This is the beginning of our strategic planning moving forward. The list was entitled The Highest Hopes for Learners. Our community wanted our students to be prepared to choose. It's a student's choice. Students are prepared to choose either college or career, and both options are quality options. There's lots of jobs that are paying a family-sustaining wage right out of high school if our students have those career and technical skills. That our students are prepared to contribute to the community, that our students experience in-school work that's relevant and meaningful, and students have a well-informed plan for what comes next. So what are the keys? What are the keys listening to our students? Well, we know that they need the basics. We still need to teach reading, writing, and math, but students also need communication skills, collaboration skills, technology, problem solving, creativity, flexibility, and adaptability. How are we going to do this? You heard before from Charlie Carroll and Kachara Bradford about our learning model. Our learning model has 4 parts. We challenge our students. We're beginning to roll this out at a few campuses. We're going to expand it across the district in Chapter 2. Challenge our students, cause them to research and create knowledge, communicate that knowledge, and then reflect and grow, where there's shared ownership, teacher and student, leadership and collaboration. Let's take another look at the direction that we're headed from the student perspective. Since the launch of the learning model in several of our schools this fall, it's been great to see students, teachers, and principals deeply engaged in the model and getting results.
Okay, good job, Victoria. Give her a hand clap.
The Fort Worth ISD learning model basically redesigns instruction to focus on critical thinking and deeper content knowledge. Right, Kachara?
That's right. The teacher designs challenging learning experiences so that students will research to strengthen their literacy skills, create with technology tools, learn to communicate at high levels through writing, conversation, and presentation, and engage in student leadership through collaboration and shared ownership.
As you know, these are skills students need to be successful in college and careers that probably don't even exist now.
And remember, we'll provide all the training and guidance teachers need. That means several days of professional learning and classroom coaching. It means coaches will collaborate with teachers as well to design lessons. Even principals will receive professional learning and ongoing executive coaching.
The next few minutes of this video will highlight the enriched classroom experience. You'll hear from teachers, students, principals, and coaches in the schools where we launched the learning model.
Here they are with their insights, experiences, and accomplishments.
At first, it's a paradigm shift, it's a mindset shift.
So I'm not an expert in front of them. I'm another learner. It's going to be the same? The vibe is going to continue the same? So
it's a whole new way of thinking and designing lessons and then implementing those lessons.
It shifts the focus of instruction to who it truly should be centered around, which are the students.
This way, it makes it more fun for kids.
It's very effective. I've seen massive improvements.
There are 4 stages of the learning model, and they're all interactive. The teachers can start off a lesson with a challenge or a hook. So she poses a challenge.
The challenge for today is to find what is the Latin root and its meaning in all these words. If you make it as a challenge, that is going to be like a trigger in their minds to, what can I do to make it better? I challenge you to give me your best. Yes.
So here's the mission. The producers of the new Magic School Bus, they want to make a new episode for next season. And guess who they picked to do it? You guys.
And they have to collaborate with each other to figure out this challenge.
You guys are going to be researching what we need to create a quiz.
And you do 4?
It's more intentional. You are really focusing on the challenge. Make sure the challenge is purposeful. You're kind of beginning with the end in mind.
This is a comic because it has a tail on it? Yeah, I agree.
There are really 4 components. The only way to actually do it successfully is if you learn how to weave them together.
They have to know how to work in groups. They have to know how to solve a problem.
We always find a solution, but sometimes we get in a fight and then we solve that problem and then we solve the original problem.
What is something you would like to know more about?
How much money do you usually get whenever you ring the bell?
I think it definitely sticks more. They're able to talk about their work. They're able to really take ownership of the things that they've done. The children love it. I have little to no behavior issues in that classroom, and they're always engaged in the lesson and excited about learning.
After they have learned something through their research and being challenged, then they can reflect and say, well, how much did I learn? Or how much did I grow?
Y'all feel good about what you did? Students are actually able to track their progress. It's down on paper for them to see.
I like seeing myself improve. It makes me feel good about myself.
The learning model adds so many different resources and so many things to our teacher toolkits. Even if you're a veteran teacher or a new teacher, there is something in there that you can learn.
I know we have a lot of things to do in the whole day, but give it a try.
In the real world, you're not given very simple problems mapped out for you. You have to learn how to collaborate, how to communicate what you don't understand.
So the end of this learning model is for them to be independently learning, setting their own goals, looking for their own information, and looking for their own application of whatever they're learning.
I'm excited, and we will be campus-wide because it's that impactful for student learning.
Preparing students to lead in the 21st century is our responsibility. We believe the Fort Worth ISD learning model is what our students need and deserve. It's what learning should look like in every classroom. Take the next step to engage in the learning model. Awareness sessions are ongoing. Professional learning is available, and students are ready. Thank you. we are very excited to get our second chapter started, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. What do you guys think? And tonight we do have two individuals from the community that we will hear public comment from. Let me remind you that because of restrictions by the Texas Open Meetings Act, board members may not engage in a verbal exchange about a subject that has not been posted. We will indeed listen and take notes, but the board is prohibited from responding to any inquiries made during a board meeting on any topic not posted on the agenda. However, the board may reply with, 1, a statement of specific factual information given in response to the inquiry, 2, recitation of existing policy in response to the inquiry, or 3, direct the person to visit with staff about the issue. While the board listens to concerns of a general nature and issues of common and individual concern, the board will not hear complaints about specific individual employees or public officers during the public comment session. Speakers shall refrain from mentioning names of individual employees or public officers during their comments. Any employee, parent, or other member of the public is asked to comply with the appropriate grievance policy to have a complaint heard pursuant to applicable board policy. In accordance with Board Policy BED Local, speakers shall have a 3-minute time limit, and we ask that you please observe this rule. Furthermore, a speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another speaker. Delegations of 5 or more persons shall appoint one person to present their views before the board with the time not to exceed 5 minutes. I'd like to call forward Dr. Carla Morton, please. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here this evening with some of my other Leadership ISD fellows. I'm also currently running for the District 11 position on the State Board of Education in the November election. But I wanted to address the board tonight as a pediatric neuropsychologist who has many patients within the Fort Worth ISD catchment area, as well as the parent of a 3rd grader who has received special education services since he was 3 years old. As you know, in 2016, the U.S. Department of Education launched an investigation regarding special education services in Texas. In January 2018, the U.S. Department of Education issued a report finding that Texas had, indeed, systematically denied special education services to students. After obtaining stakeholder input, the Texas Education Agency published a draft proposal yesterday about how to address these inequities. Along with some other parents, I'm working to create an organization for parents and other advocates of children who receive or could be receiving special education services through the Fort Worth ISD, including children currently attending private or charter schools who are being homeschooled. One of our big concerns is limited communication regarding special education services available across all Fort Worth ISD campuses. Particularly because of the findings of the U.S. Department of Education, we hope to create a strong partnership with Fort Worth ISD. Now, we know that much of the problem regarding the lack of special education services lies beyond individual schools, individual districts, and even beyond TEA. Increased transparency and communication will enable parents to better advocate for their own children, as well as at a state legislative level. In that way, we will ensure that these kids, that all kids will achieve their potential throughout their life. And as Dr. Scribner was just saying, regarding a great educational opportunity for all students across Fort Worth ISD, I want you to not forget that we need to provide a great education, especially to our students who require special education services. So we look forward to working with the board as well as all Fort Worth ISD personnel going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. Janie Ginn.
Good evening, Dr. Scribner and members of the board. I'm coming here tonight. I could not have hoped for a better foundation to have been laid prior to my speaking to you tonight, because I'm really only speaking on one item, and some people might consider it a bit insignificant, but it's consent agenda item 9C, involving a memorandum of understanding extension between Tarrant County Health and Fort Worth ISD to be involved with the CDC grant Youth Risk Behavior Survey. I would ask you, if you have not gone to the Health and PE website of our district to see the results of between 2015 2017, if you have not looked into the background of this whole matter, which I spoke against when you entered into it back in 2013, which was a 5-year time limit at that time. Was told by the Director of Health and PE that this was going to provide a way for us to purchase updated materials at no cost to us with money from the grant. However, I do want to inform you that in the pursuit of that, the reason was because our state standard was not supposed to be changed till 2020, which of course now is just 2 years away. We purchased Health Smart materials for high school and middle school, including 6th grade, for a cost from special revenue funds from this of $123,115, and a cost to the general fund of our district of $213,694. In addition, this survey has been going on since 1989. We have just seen the most beautiful presentation of finally 2 decades in almost to bringing this school district into the 21st century, which you know I have been begging for. And this gives me real hope. But we cannot waste our time, our personnel's time, our students' time on something that, as you said, Dr. Scribner, for these grants, feeds information and data somebody else wants at a cost to our resources, which, as you've heard from Ms. Shiro tonight, tend to be limited. And you've got to carefully consider every time you go into one of these grants, is it really a substantial enough benefit to Fort Worth ISD, its program, to make it valuable. So I implore you to, if you haven't really looked at it, please look at it and decide whether to vote or not, put it off, or hopefully vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now recess and reconvene in the board conference room.
To feel so far away, didn't think I had a part to play. I used to let things bring me down. I would walk with my eyes to the ground, but I knew I could find a way to push through. Every word they'd say, I grew strong. I knew right from wrong, and now I feel it too. I'm alive, yeah, I'm alive. Don't you feel it too? I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive. I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive. I love every moment with you, and I want you to know I do. I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive. 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 I'm alive.
In accordance with the Open Meetings Law, the board opened the meeting at 5:30 PM in the boardroom with a quorum present. Recessed open session in the boardroom is now reconvened at 6:39 PM in open session in the board conference room with a quorum present. As board president, I'm making the following statement in accordance with Board Policy BBFA Local. This is a reminder to all board members of the legal conflict of interest requirements and disclosure requirements you may have for matters under consideration on the agenda for this meeting. If required by law, board members shall recuse themselves from all discussion and shall abstain from voting on any matter pertaining to such a disclosure. Do we have any questions on consent agenda items this evening?
Yes.
Ms. Moss?
Thank you. I would like for someone to explain C in our consent agenda,
9C.
9C,
9C.
approved memorandum of understanding.
Sure. I think Mr. Carroll and Mr. Steiner can come shed some light on that. Okay, Ms. Marshall, thank you very much.
So the grant is a collaboration between health services and student support services. There's a couple of functions to the grant. Part of the funding was used to expand our health curriculum with respect to reproductive health services and reproductive health in the district, and that's part of the partnership with Tarrant County Public Health. It's also used to train our staff, the student support staff, particularly nurses and intervention specialists, to work directly with students in their questions and concerns and prevention education around reproductive health issues. The grant itself, to my knowledge, does not pay, it pays for everything that it requires. Again, Ms. Roberts is not here to speak to that, but per the comment earlier, everything that our department's involved in with the grant, the CDC grant funds and pays for. I don't know about the additional $215,000 of local funding, general funding that was mentioned with respect to this grant. The grant pays for the youth risk behavior study that was mentioned and also pays for the curriculum and the education that goes on in the classrooms.
Okay, so we're not paying, it's the grant is paying?
Yes, ma'am, the CDC grant.
Oh, okay.
And this item allows us to reapply to obtain that grant again for additional 3 years, is that correct? 5 years.
And it's on reproductive health issues?
It's sexual health issues in general, but it also touches on other general health issues. You may remember when she brought the results from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey to you before, it talks about mental health, substance abuse among teens. So that survey this past year, with a little over 3,000 of our high school students, gives us really critical information about what's actually happening with our kids and helps inform what kind of prevention education practices we bring out, as well as which kind of targeted interventions we bring to the schools.
So this one is not like one of the previous grants where we had sex education?
No, ma'am, this is much broader than that.
It includes the HIV prevention?
Yes, ma'am.
Which is good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Could we perhaps run the numbers and make sure if that's coming out of the general fund, that we could report that?
Sure, we'll have to reach out to Ms. Roberts on that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding consent? This concludes discussion.
Wait.
Oh, Norm, there you go.
Thank you. I'd like to ask that item 9B1 be moved to the action items
Okay,
from consent, so we can have a little discussion.
okay, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes discussion of agenda items. We'll now recess for executive session.
What grade are you guys in?
I'm in pre-K.
You're in pre-K? So what do you like about school? What did you learn this week that was fun?
My tools.
You learned about tools?
Yeah.
You like teddy bears because they're soft? That's good. What do you like the best?
I like centers too.
Why? What kind of centers are there?
There's home center.
Home center?
Yeah. Art center.
Art center? If I was an animal, you know what kind of animal I'd like to be?
What?
I would like to be a
Cheetah.
horse.
What?
Yeah. From teachers who come in early and stay late.
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z is correct.
Good morning!
To employees who make it their job to take care of our
Good to
kids.
see you.
We've got a theme going in these messages: customer service. Now Fort Worth ISD is providing a new level of customer service to families: online registration. We are rolling it out just in time for Pre-K Roundup, April 2nd through the 7th. Good morning. Buenos dias.
Good morning.
Is everyone gearing up for online pre-K registration?
Yes, absolutely.
So what does online registration mean for parents?
It means that they don't have to come to the school anymore to register, wait in line. They're able to do all the online registration with a mobile device.
And that'll make it easier for office staff as well.
Definitely, definitely. It will save a lot of time. By the way, we have our coffee and conversation going on right now in the library for our parents.
Oh, perfect. Good morning. Buenos dias. We want to make it as easy as possible. Will filling it out online be more convenient for you?
Very convenient.
Why?
I could do it from the comfort of my home, from my phone, or from my laptop.
Even though you can register from home, school staff is available to help if you need it. Our city libraries are trained to help too. Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, we're going to register your little ones for PK? Great, well let's get started. All you have to do is go to the Fort Worth ISD website or your school's website. It's very simple, and you'll see the link. Enter your email address and a password, and you're in. The questions are easy, and you can go back anytime you need to. When you get to the page that asks for documents, you'll have the option of scanning or uploading them. And here's a great thing: if you need to find your documents or take a break, you can sign out, save where you are, and come back to it later. One more thing: if you're registering from home and you do hit a snag, there's even technical support available on Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. When you're all done, hit submit. So, 3 things to remember: register online for pre-K April 2nd through the 7th. The earlier you register, the better. Your application will be time-stamped. Then, we'll start registering all other students. Yes, all. A-L-L. Even returning students on July 1st. Where do you think paper comes from?
Trees.
From trees. Oh, you're absolutely right. We're saving paper and what we all need more of, time. Congratulations, they're in.
Yay!
No tengo pelo. I don't have any hair. You're right. You're right.
My puppies, he don't have hair.
Your papi doesn't have any hair either? You know what I tell people? I say hair is overrated.
In pre-K we learn letters, science, reading, writing.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Fort Worth ISD Pre-K. It's not play school, it's important preparation for first grade and beyond. So parents, register your kids April 2nd through the 7th. Go to fwisd.org/pre-K for more information. Fort Worth ISD Pre-K. It's where success starts. Since the launch of the learning model in several of our schools this fall, it's been great to see students, teachers, and principals deeply engaged in the model and getting results.
Okay, good job, Victoria. Give her a hand clap.
The Fort Worth ISD learning model basically redesigns instruction to focus on critical thinking and deeper content knowledge. Right, Kachara?
That's right. The teacher designs challenging learning experiences so that students will research to strengthen their literacy skills, create with technology tools, learn to communicate at high levels through writing, conversation, and presentation, and engage in student leadership through collaboration and shared ownership.
As you know, these are skills students need to be successful in college and careers that probably don't even exist now.
And remember, we'll provide all the training and guidance teachers need. That means several days of professional learning and classroom coaching. It means coaches will collaborate with teachers as well to design lessons. Even principals will receive professional learning and ongoing executive coaching.
The next few minutes of this video will highlight the enriched classroom experience. You'll hear from teachers, students, principals, and coaches in the schools where we launched the learning model.
Here they are with their insights, experiences, and accomplishments.
At first, it's a paradigm shift. It's a mindset shift.
So I'm not an expert in front of them. I'm another learner. It's going to be the same? The vibe is going to continue the same? So
It's a whole new way of thinking and designing lessons and then implementing those lessons.
It shifts the focus of instruction to who it truly should be centered around, which are the students.
This way, it makes it more fun for kids.
It's very effective. I've seen massive improvements.
There are 4 stages of the learning model, and they're all interactive. The teachers can start off a lesson with a challenge or a hook. So she poses a challenge.
The challenge for today is to find what is the Latin root and its meaning in all these words. If you make it as a challenge, that is going to be like a trigger in their minds. What can I do to make it better? I challenge you to give me your best. Yes.
So here's the mission. The producers of the new Magic School Bus, they want to make a new episode for next season. And guess who they picked to do it? You guys.
And they have to collaborate with each other to figure out this challenge.
You guys are going to be researching what we need to create a quiz.
We do 4.
It's more intentional. You are really focusing on the challenge. Make sure the challenge is purposeful. You're kind of beginning with the end in mind.
This is a comet because it has a tail on it? Yeah, I agree.
There are really 4 components. The only way to actually do it successfully is if you learn how to weave them together.
They have to know how to work in groups. They have to know how to solve a problem.
We always find a solution, but sometimes we get in a fight and then we solve that problem and then we solve the original problem.
What is something you would like to know more about?
How much money do you usually get whenever you ring the bell?
I think it definitely sticks more. They're able to talk about their work. They're able to really take ownership of the things that they've done. The children love it. I have little to no behavior issues in that classroom, and they're always engaged in the lesson and excited about learning.
After they have learned something through their research and being challenged, then they can reflect and say, well, how much did I learn? Or how much did I grow?
Y'all feel good about what you did? Students are actually able to track their progress. It's down on paper for them to see.
I like seeing myself improve. It makes me feel good about myself.
The learning model adds so many different resources and so many things to our teacher toolkits. Even if you're a veteran teacher or a new teacher, there is something in there that you can learn.
I know we have a lot of things to do in the whole day, but give it a try.
In the real world, you're not given very simple problems mapped out for you. You have to learn how to collaborate, how to communicate what you don't understand.
So the end of this learning model is for them to be independently learning, setting their own goals, looking for their own information, and looking for their own application of whatever they're learning.
I'm excited, and we will be campus-wide because it's that impactful for student learning.
Preparing students to lead in the 21st century is our responsibility. We believe the Fort Worth ISD learning model is what our students need and deserve. It's what learning should look like in every classroom. Take the next step to engage in the learning model. Awareness sessions are ongoing. Professional learning is available, and students are ready. Thank you.
In accordance with the open meetings law, the board opened the meeting at 5:30 PM in the boardroom with the quorum present, recessed and reconvened to open session in the board conference room, adjourned regular session, convened executive session, adjourned executive session, and now reconvened open session at 7:19 PM in the boardroom with the quorum present. Do I have a motion accepting consent agenda items excluding 9B1, which is approve the qualification of all firms for legal services? Moved by Dr. Sims, seconded by Ms. Moss. Any discussion regarding consent agenda? Please move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. We've removed one item, as I stated, per Mr. Robbins' request. Do I have a motion for 9B1, approve the qualification of all firms for legal services? Moved by Trustee Robbins, seconded by Ms. Moss. Dr. Sims.
This one was asking for a 4-year deal on that. Is this the same one?
This is for legal counsel that staff is prepared to have people listed, as different firms listed.
Oh, is that the one we got later this afternoon?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think it did say for 4 years. And normally, we go with 3-year agreements or contracts.
Ms. Shiro?
Services, we've ranged anywhere from 3, 4, or 5 years. If it's the board desire that we, limit this to a 3-year period and then we go out for qualifications in 3 years, that's perfectly fine with me. So it's not uncommon. We have done this in the past for 5 years. And so we've limited now to a 4-year period because we went back out for RFQ for legal services before the 5-year expiration. And so I will just take the direction from the board as to how many years they'd like to have this open.
Well, we could always add a year. I mean, if we decide after a year or after 2 years, we can renew it.
Okay.
Just an idea from what I remember in the past.
Right.
We can change it if we want to. No problem.
Would you want to change that tonight, Dr. Sims?
Well, if that's the recommendation of staff, I don't like contracts longer than 3 years.
Consecutive years.
Personally.
Trustee Robbins?
Thank you, President Jackson. I'm in favor of all this this whole item. My question has to do with the process that we use when we engage a firm. I don't have a clear understanding of how that happens. Sometimes we engage outside counsel and they come in for a short period of time and they go off, and sometimes they come in for a longer period of time. And we have staff attorneys, so I would like for us to be able to talk about or to discuss or study how we actually engage these firms. And I think it's policy BDD local. I would like for maybe our policy group to look at that and see if we could improve on that, give some clarity to that. At the present time, it looks like only 1 or 2 people can engage outside counsel, and I think it'd be better if the whole board had the opportunity to do that. So if we could table this maybe and have somebody look at it a little bit and come back with a recommendation, that's what I would like to do.
So, Mr. Robbins, you're asking to table the list of attorneys, staff?
I'd like to approve the list, but I would like to, okay, let me withdraw that. I don't want to table this vote. I'm very much in favor of the action, but I would like for us to talk about or discuss how we go about selecting law firms.
Would you like to add that to next agenda, next meeting?
Yes, if the policy group, I'd like for the policy group to look at it first, to give it a little oversight, and then come to us with a recommendation.
Okay, great, thank you. Trustee Moss.
Sorry for the confusion.
President Jackson, I agree. We, as the board, should be aware of, I guess you might call it a rotation. I don't know if we do a rotation. I just know that we see the attorneys come to the board meeting. I guess I'm not sure who the person, the requester. I don't know if the other attorneys requested the other attorney. I don't know if we have the board attorney or is it the district attorney? So are we using the same attorney for both? Or we just need to know how it operates? How did we get where we are?
Dr. Sims?
Substitute motion that we have annual renewals after 3 years rather than 4.
Just to be clear, the item is for 1 year through March 20th, so it would be a contract for 1 year with annual renewals up to 4 years. So it actually, the board there could be just 1 year and then an additional year. It can be reviewed every March or before March to make that determination. So it's not actually a 4-year contract, it's a 1-year contract.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm good with that.
Okay, so you're going to withdraw the substitute motion, and we're back to the original. So we are voting on 9B1, approve the qualification of all firms for legal services, moved by Mr. Robbins, seconded by Ms. Moss. We have had discussion. Please move to voting. And Faye says just a second. 4-3.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah, thank you. And the motion passes unanimously. Moving to action items. 15A, take action on district teaching permit for non-core CTE courses. Do I have a motion? Moved by Dr. T.A. Sims, seconded by Trustee Louis Banos. Any discussion? Seeing, hearing none, please move to voting. This is entertaining. And the motion passes unanimously. 15B, approve contract with School Empowerment Network for the Transformation Zone Planning Grant. Do I have a motion? Moved by Trustee Paz, seconded by Trustee Louis Banos. Any discussion? Seeing, hearing none, please move to voting. Motion passes unanimously. 15C, election of Education Service Center Region 11 Board of Directors. Do I have a motion? Trustee Moss moves. Seconded by Ms. Paz. Any discussion, Ms. Moss? Okay. Any discussion? I did, Ms. Moss. Yeah, I just saw your light was red and you were pushing. I wasn't sure.
Check mine.
There it goes.
Yes, because it's always slow to come on. But I just wanted to say a few words. In your booklet, we have place 7 for Tarrant County, Region 11, and we have a person from Fort Worth ISD on the ballot. So I hope you look at that and support Fort Worth. Thank you.
Trustee Robbins.
Do we need to be person-specific on this, don't we?
We do need to be
Yeah.
person-specific.
So, I believe you're talking about Denise Kahn? She's a wonderful person. Yeah, I would recommend her.
Okay,
Yeah, we had, yeah.
yes, we need to use the, we
Yeah.
need to nominate her from page 93, is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Moss, will you?
I move that we nominate Denise Kahn for place 7, the Tarrant County position for Region 11 Board.
Thank you. Mr. Robbins, are you through
You
speaking?
betcha.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good thing.
Moved by Ms. Moss, seconded by Ms. Paz. Any discussion? Seeing, hearing none, please move to voting. Motion passes unanimously. 15D, approve the Alice Carlson and Joe Kelly calendars for the 2018-19 school year. Do I have a motion? Moved by Trustee Moss, seconded by Trustee Lubanos. Any discussion? Seeing, hearing none, please move to voting. That concludes all of our action items. We're on 16, comments by any board members or the superintendent on current Fort Worth ISD activities or any announcements. Seeing no announcements, we are adjourned.